Turn with me to Mark 4. Mark 4. To Mark 4. We're going to start at verse 35. Mark 4, verse 35. We, in the past few weeks, we have talked about the why in God. We've talked about the when. Today we're going to talk about the where. Today we're going to talk about the where. In verse 35, Jesus is telling his disciples that he's getting ready to take them somewhere. They're getting ready to go somewhere with Jesus. And I'll read you from verse 35 to verse 41, where it reads, on that day, when evening had come, he said to them, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in a boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the storm, he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. And they woke him up and said, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? Verse 41 says, and they were filled with great fear and said to one another, who then is this? What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? Look at your neighbor and ask him, where is God? Where is God? Go ahead and take your seat. Go ahead and take your seat. Amen. Where is God? And as we look at verse 35, we see that, as I mentioned, Jesus, they're getting ready to go somewhere with Jesus. And Jesus had been speaking to the crowd all day. Jesus had been preaching to the crowd from verse 1 to verse 33 in this chapter. He'd been speaking in parables, but he said very clearly in verse 35 that let us go across to the other side. Amen. I want to give some clarity to some parameters here, because I want you to understand, if you get nothing else, I want you to understand that the disciples were with Jesus the whole time. If you get nothing else from today, I want you to understand that the disciples were with Jesus the whole time. And Jesus, even we know that because even in verse 34, it says that he spoke to them privately, explaining everything, the parables that he had been preaching all day. He spoke to them privately because quite often he had to clarify exactly the point that he was making. So he was talking to them specifically after he left the crowd. And so he had been preaching, like I said, from verse 1 to 33, and some of the areas that he was talking about was the sower and the seed, where he said that the sower sowed seed. And in the first point, he sowed seed and birds came and ate it. And then in the second spot, he sowed seed on rocky ground, and the sun scorched the seed. And then in the third spot, he sowed seed on a thorny ground, and it was choked out. In the fourth one, he sowed seed on good ground. And on good ground, he said, it yielded 30, 60, 100-fold. And so in clarification, he said, okay, I want you to understand, when I say the sower sowed seed, there was somebody bringing forth the word. And the birds that ate it was Satan. Right? So that he's speaking to people who in their heart, they reject the word right away. Before the word even has an opportunity to get into your spirit, they reject the word. The word is rejected. And the second one, when he talks about rocky ground, he's saying, you know what? It's so shallow that when the seeds try to take root, it's so shallow that the sun scorches it. There's no, so that's somebody who maybe I'm in church. Maybe I've been to church, I go to church, but I'm good with what grandmama and them used to say. I'm not trying to learn more of the word, so I'm shallow. Third, when he said thorny ground, that means that I'm so distracted by the things of the world that the thorns, they choke it out. There's stuff going on. I got my job. I got my TV shows. I've got my education. I've got my friends. I've got everything going on. So I'm distracted, and the things of the world choke out the word. Then in the last one, he said, it fell on good ground. People were joyful, and it bare fruit. And the Bible tells us that a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. So again, our lives, we're the trees. And we're to be known by the fruit that we bear. And so the question is, as he's talking about, he's giving these parables, he's trying to let you figure out, where do you line up? Which one of these? Which soil are you? And then he went on to talk about the lamp and the basket and the mustard seed that was so small, but it grows up to be huge. It doesn't have to be a whole lot of seed in order for it to bear fruit. There just has to be some seed. Okay? And so, but the one thing, again, the point I want you to get is that they were with God, Jesus, man, God in the flesh. They were with him. They were in God's will. They were doing what Jesus said. They were hearing God. They were listening to him, because in 34 it said that he explained it to them. Then said they were going with God. They were in relationship. They were where they were supposed to be. That's it. Don't lose that point. They were where they were supposed to be. 35 said, and I know they were listening to God, because when Jesus said, let us go across to the other side. Verse 36 shows that they immediately obeyed him, and leaving the crowd, they took him. I like that. Verse 36 sort of excites me, because it said they took him with them in the boat. They took him. See, and that's the thing. Do we take Jesus with us? When we get in our car, when we go about our business, are we taking Jesus with us? Or do we, okay, we were good and okay, pastor got us out at a good time today, so we leave Jesus right here and go on about our business. I got my Jesus fix for the day, and I'm good. But no, the disciples took Jesus with him, and it went even further. I love it. Say they took him in the boat with them just as he was. Oh, y'all don't get it. Y'all don't get it. They took Jesus just as he was. They didn't water it down. They didn't have to sugarcoat Jesus. They took him just like it. Jesus had been preaching and teaching all day, but they took him just like raw Jesus, just like that. Just straight up Jesus. Hey, let's go. I got Jesus, and that's enough. That used to be a song we used to say. I got Jesus, and that's enough. Do we add to? Okay, I got Jesus with him, but do we add to him? Do we put some more stuff with him? Do we take Jesus just as he is? And say they took him just as he is. And here's the thing I want you to know. When you take Jesus with you just like he is, when you take him for truth, because Jesus is truth. When you have Jesus and truth with you, it says other boats were with them. People are going to start to follow you. People are going to want to know, what is this Jesus that, what is this about you? Why is it that you have something that nobody else has? You're going to attract people. You're going to attract good people, and you're going to attract bad people. But you're going to attract people. People will pay attention to you when you are taking Jesus as he is. When you're not adding anything to it, just taking Jesus. That's just straight up truth. Because some people still today really want the truth. Not everybody. What's the movie say? You can't handle the truth. A lot of people are in that position. They can't handle not the real truth, but some people really want the truth. And it said they took Jesus just as he was. But here's the turning point. Verse 37. Verse 37 says, and then a great storm arose. Now, again, the point that I wanted you to keep was that they were with Jesus. They were listening to Jesus. They were in the will of God. They were listening. They were obedient and all of that. But yet and still, verse 37 says, a great storm arose. Do I need to go back over there again, their position? Okay, so you got the fact that they were where they were supposed to be, but the scripture says, and then a great storm arose. Now the Greek calls this storm, it causes it a lapse. A lilaps, that means a tumultuous squall, a whirling wind, something that's out of control and comes out of nowhere. That's what happened. So again, I got to make this point. If nothing else sinks, they were in the will, they were listening, they were with, and a storm came up. Okay? And Job, anybody remember? We just talked, right? Hey, a man after God's own heart. Storm came up. And here's the thing. He had fishermen with him, so they understood the seriousness of the storms that would come up on the sea. They were very familiar with this. And my Bible says, and then a great storm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. Here's the deal. I'm an ex-sailor. I understand what it is to be out in 25-foot, 30-foot swells when the waves are coming up over the bow, when the waves are coming up all the way to the main deck, when the water is coming up, you cannot go outside. I understand that, but there's two things that sailors are afraid of. There's fire on the ship that needs to be put out, and water in the ship that's not supposed to be there. And they had problem number two. There was water. My Bible says that the boat was already filling. Now the question is, I've got all of this. I'm with you, Jesus. I'm in your will. I'm obedient. I'm listening to you. I'm going along with you. And a storm rises. Where is God in all of this? Where is God? Because that has to be their question, right? We've seen it. If you've ever read Mark, the first chapters are all about the miracles. Jesus was doing miracles. He was doing miracles. He was doing miracles. And okay, so we know he has power, but where's God now? He says he's the Son of God. He's God in the flesh. Where is God now? I'm in a storm that you told me to get into. I'm in a place, I followed your will, and by following your will, now I'm in a storm. Something wrong with that. Where is God in all of this? See, here's the thing. You need to understand that though you are in the will of God, a storm in your life does not mean that you've been disobedient. A storm in your life does not mean that Jesus or God is chastising you. This storm was what I would like to call a spiritual coordinates check. It's checking to see, where are you spiritually? When this kind of storm comes up, this is sort of that spiritual gut check. You ever had a gut check? The fellas, we use a gut check, boom. And you're supposed to always be ready, because if you got a gut check at the wrong time, it's going to take the air out of you. This was a spiritual gut check for the disciples. See, and here's what I need you to understand. Storms don't mean that you're being disobedient. Storm does not mean that you're out of the will of God. Your obedience lets you know whether you're in or out of the will of God. And only you know if you're being obedient. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for those who are going through something and can't understand, okay, why there's a storm. They were in the will. They were with God. They were with Jesus. They were listening, all of that, doing all the right things, and a storm came up, right? So now, lilaps have one purpose. Lilaps have one purpose, that is to destroy you. Lilaps that come into your life has one purpose, that is to destroy you. Here's what I need you to understand. A lot of theologians say that this storm was a spiritually caused storm. This storm was a storm that the devil was trying to take Jesus out. This storm was not, because the reason they think that is because of Jesus' response to the storm. Here's the deal. A lilaps is when things are 100% out of control. When there's turmoil going on, you have no way of controlling things. When circumstances unexpected. You ever seen somebody, or you ever been in a wreck where somebody T-bones you? You're going through an intersection and somebody just comes along out of the blue, runs a light. You are in the right. You're even going the right speed. You're not even speeding. You didn't run a yellow light. You had the green, everything. You had the right of way and everything. And somebody comes along and T-bone you. That's a lot lapse. Or in your life when the job is not going right and things are going bad and kids act like they were born in Babylon. Lie lapse. Right? You got too much month left at the end of your money. Lie lapse. People acting a fool all the time. Lie lapse. You feel me? Yeah. And see, it's out of control. I'm not talking about the light bill can't be paid. I'm not talking about, well, I got a flat tire. I'm talking about things out of control. I got to get to work, and now my engine is bad. Not only is my engine bad, but they say if I don't come to work, they're going to fire me. And if I don't go to work, then I got other bills that's showing up. I got all of these things happening at the same time. Then Junior, I get a call from the school. Junior's acting a fool. I get to the school now. Lie lapse. Things are just out of control. And the problem is it doesn't get over quickly. It's just continually. There's no way. They couldn't control the wind. They couldn't control the rain. They couldn't control the waves. They couldn't control the clouds. They couldn't control the thunder. They had no control. Water is coming into the ship. Everything is out of control. Lie lapse. Now see, we're good. We're good when, as long as things are going good with, we can sing the song, "Oh, happy day. Ah, happy, when Jesus," everything's going, the job is good and the sun is shining and everything's going well and, kids are acting right, bringing home good grades and I can sleep well at night and bills are paid. But what about when the lie lapse show up? And we have songs for those too. We have songs for what was the guy? When the storms keep on raging in my life. Anybody remember that? Anybody? Yeah. And it's, my soul has been anchored in the Lord. And we can sing that and we can go on. But it's one thing to sing it. It's one thing to sing and have it on the radio and it's a whole different ball game when you live in it. Is my soul anchored? Is my soul, is that the real deal? We can sing it all day, but sometimes we can sing a lie, we can test a lie, we can do all of that, because when the real deal show up, that tells you, again, this is a spiritual gut check, checking your spiritual coordinates. And see, here's the problem. The disciples had three issues going on. They had the emotional, environmental, the external, what they saw, what you see happening, going on all around you, no control, when they felt helpless and hopeless. Everything on the outside, they just felt bad. Then, number two, they had the emotional lie lapse. So you got the external lie lapse thing that's going on the outside, and as long as it happens quick and a little something sort of make you stumble a little bit, that's okay. But when it keeps coming, day after day, night after night, week after week, month after month, things don't change. Then you go from the external environmental lie lapse to the emotional lie lapse. It starts to mess with your soul, your mind, your will, and your emotion. And see, I'm pretty sure the disciples, they tried. They tried to row a little bit harder. They started, bailing the water out of the ship. They tried to change the sails. They were doing everything they could do externally. And I'm pretty sure they were pumping each other. Come on, Peter, bail it out. Come on, James, get it. We can do it. After a while, when the water started coming in the boat, we had an opportunity to go and Brother Rob, we had opportunity to go and spread his ashes. He wanted his ashes spread in Jamaica, and we went to Jamaica, and it was an honor to go and have a memorial service there for him. And so it was a cloudy day, and they came up. We were all there, me, Michelle, the kids, And it put us on this little boat, and we started heading out to sea, to the Caribbean, Bahamian, Atlantic. Anyway, we was in the water, whatever water it was. And so, it's okay as long as you're inside the breakers, nice and smooth. Again, there was 3, 6, 8 of us in this little boat. And they kept going, and I'm in my pastoral role. We're going after what first? Okay, hey, hold on. Hey, home. I just need to know, how far do we have to go? I just need to, because see, it was cool at first, and a little wave, it was all right, but after a while, the way, we're riding, and again, I can swim, but that's a whole lot of water to try to drink. And I know somebody who can't swim. And then come to find out, everybody else on the boat couldn't swim. So, okay, now that's far enough. Because again, all it would have taken was a little bit in that little boat, and we were in trouble. We're in trouble. So again, the emotional aspect, I was cool and calm and collected until we went further and further out. And then the clouds start getting darker and a little lightning over here. Emotional lapse. There was no water in that boat, but in my head. So it's like I figure I need to speak up for everybody, right? So they had the emotional life. And here's the thing, like I said, you got the kids acting up. Now the job is acting bad. If job acting up, then you got the financial issue. And when the finances definitely bring about relational issues, then relational issues bring about stress. So now you got the stress. Then you turn the news on, and they got every kind of thing trying to kill you under the sun, right? So now you got all of this going on. Emotional lapse. The problem with that is it goes even further. Because in verse 38, it shows that they had an internal lapse. So you got the environmental external, you got the emotional, now you got the internal, the spiritual lapse. And the problem is that spiritually now they're starting to ask, where is God? Where is Jesus in this situation? In verse 38 it says, but he was in the stern. For those who don't know, nautical terms, that's in the back. That's the back, Bow is the front, stern is the back, port is the left side, starboard is the right side. I just taught y'all something. So now, we're going. So anyway, the stern, he was in the back, at the bottom below deck, on a pillow, on a cushion, chilling. Now, I got a problem. Dude, you ever had somebody to send you somewhere and a problem break out? That's the disciples like, wait a minute, bruh, do you not see what's going on? Surely, you might be asleep, but surely with all of this going on, you should have woke up and seen what's going on. But my Bible says he was asleep. They had to wake Jesus up. Think about it. I got to wake Jesus up. Now, here's the question. How many people do you go to before you decide to get God involved? Where do you go? What all do you try before you decide to get God involved with your situation? Who do you go to? What do you try to do? Faith without works is dead, so we need to do our own. But at some point, maybe even with those works, maybe I should have prayed before I went to work. Maybe before I get involved in my work, I pray about that. So now he's already involved. But no, they tried to do their thing. But the question is, okay, I need to wake Jesus up. And they woke Jesus up. And the question is pretty much, Jesus, where are you? Where are you? They ask him the question, teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? They didn't say, Jesus, wake up. The boat's about to sink. Don't you care about us? In other words, Jesus, where are you? Where's all of that spirituality, all of that miracleness that you do? Jesus, where are you? Do you really care? And here's the thing. Let's bring it to 2020. Many of us have the same mindset when we're dealing with something, right? You remember Mary and Martha? Look, Jesus, if you had been here, in other words, where were you, dude? We sent word to you. If you had been here, and we do the exact same thing. Lord, it wouldn't be this hard if you were here. If you were working in my life, it wouldn't hurt this much if you were working, if you were right here with me. You said you'd never leave me nor forsake me, but if you were right here with me, it wouldn't hurt. It wouldn't take this long to fix this situation if you were right here with me. God, where are you? And so the Bible says they woke him up. I love in verse 39 what Jesus did. Jesus said he didn't even speak to them. That's what I like about it. Jesus didn't even get up and speak to them. My Bible says he arose, he rebuked the wind, and then he spoke to the sea. He arose, he rebuked the wind. And what you need to understand is that word rebuke, and that's why theologians think this was a spiritual storm that came up so suddenly, because that same word rebuke is the same word that he used when he cast demons out of people. When he rebuked the demons, that's the same rebuke that he used when he rebuked this wind. And so he rebuked the wind, then he spoke to the water. He rebuked the wind, stopped the spiritual stuff. And as a matter of fact, if this is out of hell, you know what I love? Jesus said, shut the hell up. Stop it. Stop it. Many of us need to speak to situations in our lives that exact same way. All kind of hell is going on, and we just continue going along. No. Shh. I don't want to say it too many times. Some of y'all got sensitive ears, but we need to speak to that situation. Because, see, what Jesus did, he showed his humanity and his divinity at the same time. He showed that, you know what, I've been preaching all day, and I'm a little tired. I've been preaching all day, and you know what, I'm going to take a break while we go across to the other side. But here's the deal. He showed his humanity in his sleeping. But, see, you have to go back and see what he said, because he had already told them what the deal was. He didn't say, let us go across, try to get across. Let us attempt to go, hopefully we can make it across the sea. He said, let us go across to the other side. So since he had spoke that, and that's the destination, then he could go to sleep. My question to you is, what destination has Jesus spoken to you? What's the destination that what has God told you that you are going to do, but yet you're waking him up? Lord, don't you care that I'm about to perish? And he's already told you, here's where you're going. This is your destiny. This is where you're going. Forget the storm. He told you, in this life, in this world, there's going to be trouble, but I have overcome the world. And so if Jesus is in you, then you have overcome the world. He got up, he spoke. Here's the deal. While you're trying to work on something, God's already worked it out. He's already talked to you. Here you are, you're trying to borrow money to pay a bill. God's over here working on your career. You're trying to hold on to a relationship with this buster or this bustette, and God's over here working on your king or your queen, and you. No, you asking questions, where is God? And God is saying, in verse 40, he said, where are you? Because he said to them, why are you afraid? Why have you no faith? Where are you? You asking where I am. I got this. I told you what the deal is. Let me ask you where you are. You remember Adam and Eve? You remember in the garden, God was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and he asked Adam, say, Adam, where art thou? Spiritual gut check. checking your spiritual coordinates. That was not for God to know where they were. He knew where they were. He's like, Adam, I need you to identify in yourself, where are you spiritually? And he's doing the exact same thing with us. Where's your faith? He's asking you, where are you? Are you where you should be? They were wondering, Jesus, why aren't you up here freaking out like us? Jesus is like, why are you freaking out, period? You got me with you. See, it's all in reference to how we deal with the God that we have, right? He said, I'll never leave you or forsake you. We act like we all alone and have no help. So it's not where is God. The question is, where are you? That's the question. See, because storms are going to come. They're going to come out of nowhere. I don't know if that was a sign that the car got problems again, Minister Mo, but, storms come up. In the storms, they storms come. You just got to have my soul has been. You got to anchor. You got to get anchored in it. Because people are going to act a fool. People are going to act a fool. Things are going to act a fool. Pieces are going to break. Things are going to break down. Storms are going to happen in your life. But my question is, do you have the relationship with God, with Jesus, where you know where he told you that you're going to go? Because that's the issue. That's the issue. I got a dear friend, and his thing is, man, God's not talking to me. My question to him is, what's the last thing God said to you? Does God need to say anything else to you? Is there anything else need to be said? Or are you doing what God said? God owes us nothing. He's told us what we need to do. For each and every one of us, there's something that he's told us. But sometimes we're going through, we're dealing with stuff. God is saying, listen, we're going across to the other side. I'm taking you across to the other side. Here's what settled in my spirit as I read this, and I went back and forth to what Jesus said. He says, Cedric, tell Heart Fellowship, regardless as to what's going on, I told you, you're going across to the other side. So whatever it is, see, whatever he said to you, you're going across to the other side, baby. Don't worry about how things feel, how things look, how what people say you can and can't not do. You're going across to the other side. We have to hold on to his promise. There's power when he says it, that's enough. We used to say, if he says it, I believe it now. Forget that. He says it, that's enough. Because it was evident that the disciples didn't believe it, right? Because they're, Lord, do you care that we perish? So it's evidently they forgot what he had said. They forgot what he had said. We have to be mindful. If God says we're going, Heart Fellowship, we're going to cry. I don't care what people do. I don't care what people say. Here's the deal. Here's what we need to understand. Sometimes storms are going to come up. But we have to understand Jesus in his humanness and his divinity. The same one that raised people from the dead was the same one that went to the cross and died. But he raised himself from the dead. Humanity and divinity. The same one that cried with us and had a heart for Mary and Martha. And when he said, Jesus wept. He's the same one that can fix all of our issues and dry our tears. He's the same one. He can fill us in his humanity, and he can solve our problems with his divinity. That's where we have to be mindful. Sister D sort of stole my thunder, but this is where we're going to land today. This is where we're going to land. The fact of the matter is storms are going to rage. Now, you're going to do one or two things. You're going to be like Peter, and you're going to start out because things are cool. You're going to start out, and you're going to start walking, and you're walking on water, and that's all right. You know, Peter's strolling with Jesus on water until he started to see and took his eyes off of Jesus. And then he started to sink, my Bible says. You're going to do that, or you're going to be like Stephen. And regardless as to what happened, you're going to look up and see Jesus. And that's my thing. That to me, that still blesses my soul. Every time I've read it, every time I've seen it, regardless. And again, I told him Thursday night, these weren't rocks. They weren't pebbling him. They were in, ping, oh. No. No, they wasn't even rocking him. No, they were stoning him. They were stoning him. And in the midst of them stoning him, he still praised God. He still looked to heaven. The problem is we take our eyes off of Jesus. We forget what he said. And again, that's the only time in the Bible I've ever seen where Jesus gives a standing ovation. That's the only time I've ever seen that. I want that from Jesus. And here's where I want you to end. Go to, do y'all have chapter 5, verse 1? Can you pull that real quick? Chapter 5, verse 1. Chapter 5, verse 1. Anybody got it? What does it say? That's enough. Then they came what? He said, let us go across to. And then what did it say? He said, let us go across to. And then what does it say? Last time he said, let us go across to. And what does it say? Period. Whatever he's told you, if you haven't heard from him, might I ask that you seek him? So that you can hear where he's telling you that you need to go. And then when he tells you where you need to go, ignore the storms that are going to come. The enemy has a job to keep you from reaching your destiny. Go through the storm. When you get into the storm, when you see a storm coming, maybe you ought to check with Jesus then. If he seems to be asleep, wake up, Lord, because I got a storm coming. I know you care for me. I don't have to ask that question. Wake up, Lord. I know there's a storm coming. Because the bottom line is, you're going to come across to the other side. That's the bottom line. He's not a man that he can lie. He's not a man that he can lie to you. My question is for you to check. Check and see if you remember what he told you. Go back one verse. I want to finish here. Back to verse 41, 4 and 41. Verse 4 and 41. And he said, then he asked them about if they had, why they're fearful. Do you have any faith? Then it says, then they feared exceedingly. Now check that out. Then now, weren't they already fearful? Weren't they already afraid? But then they feared even more. They feared even more because, wait a minute, the thing that we were afraid of, this dude just handled up. He just came and spoke to, dealt with the storm and the wind. He just dealt with all of that. So I need to be afraid of him because if he can do that to the storm and the wind, imagine what he could do with me if I get out of line. Then they feared him exceedingly and said to one another, my Bible says, what manner of man is this that even the wind and the sea obey? In other words, there is no circumstance, no storm that you can get into that he can't just speak the word and end it and solve it. But we need to be going to him, not trying to do it all of ourselves. If when he directs us, we do that, but make sure, let's go back to the very beginning, that you're in his will, that you're being obedient, that you're following, you're listening to him. That way, when you go to him, you don't even have to worry about faith because, Lord, I know I'm in your will. I know I'm in, and either way, I win. I told you that before. Whether either I win here or I win in eternity. And see, some people have a problem with, well, I'm not ready to die. I'm not ready. Listen, if you have a problem down here, imagine none of those problems ever again. See, when you start getting older, you start, having pains. Just lapse in your body. You breathe too hard in the morning. Oh! How'd you hurt your back? I breathe deep. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. At some point, all of the issues here, at some point, at some point, we're going to go and be before the Lord. As Minister D said, of course you want to hear that, well done, my good and faithful servant. That's ultimately what we want to hear. But in the midst of that, in the midst of our lives, there might be a storm. Just know that he's saying, don't be fearful. Have faith in him, because you're going to go across to the other side. Amen? Amen. Amen.